How many of you guys are founders? Founders, please raise your hands. Or just involving a startup? Raise your hand. How many of you guys are gonna start a startup? Okay, so most of them are founders. So just so that we have an idea of this whole speed philosophy came about, can you give us a bit of the picture of, say, from your graduate school days to how you came west? What was the environment like with the VCs, with the startups like when you first started out? How did this speed come about? Was it like at hindsight, or it's something when you first started out you learned right away?
So there was definitely a difference for me between East Coast of the United States and Silicon Valley. When I tried to raise money the first time in the East Coast, I actually was not able to raise money. I met with 3 or 4 different venture capitalists, and none of them wanted to invest money. I went out to California, and the same day I presented, I got a term sheet. On the East Coast, the lawyers were very slow and expensive. They wanted to charge $10,000 or $15,000 to give me a package of legal documents to help me get started. Stock option, incentive plan, non-disclosure agreements, all this stuff. Whereas the lawyers in Silicon Valley just handed me a disc and said, here's all the paperwork you need, stock plans, non-disclosure agreements, everything. And I'm like, okay, well, how much does this cost? They're like, no, this is free. We'll charge you for the hours over time, but this stuff is free. So I think, I'm not sure how you can leverage this here, because you're kind of, you've got what you got. But for me, it was trying to find the right environment where investors were eager to invest and where lawyers were happy to move fast. Things were speeding up even on my first company. The internet was starting to accelerate. It made me sound so old. I'm not that old. But it does feel to me like right now in Vietnam is kind of like the way it was during the first acceleration of internet in Silicon Valley, which is a very exciting time to be around.
Right. So, right now in Vietnam, people feel, all right, in terms of the ecosystem of investment, we have maybe 2 or 3 funds that have camps here, meaning full-time on the ground. I guess IDG was the first one, and then Cyber Agent, Vina DFJ. Now, if we want to raise money, we have to sort of fly out. We don't have the luxury of, walking down the street, there are 5 or 6 VCs waiting for you, waiting for you term sheet. It's really refreshing to look at your philosophy in terms of just getting money in one day, which I think is more an aspiration than maybe in practice, especially here, because a DD here takes about 6 months, 3 to 6 months of DD, of due diligence. So, do you think your ability to raise money quickly and get product launched quickly had to do with that sort of that VC environment, the venture cap environment, the investment environment that was sort of ready then, or what do you think it would take in terms of just the ecosystem for that to really be more practical?
So yes, I don't. Things are definitely faster to raise money in Silicon Valley than in Vietnam. I think it's like you say, aspirational. I think the philosophy though is. It's important to me to think about what can you do to move things along faster. There's so many. It's hard enough to be successful with your entrepreneurial idea with so many challenges, but if you add on top of it delays in this and delays on that, delays in getting office space, delays in raising money, delays in hiring people, it just makes it harder, like molasses slowing you down. I do think you want to try. By whatever means you can to speed things up. In terms of negotiating with investors, many times I took a deal that my friend said, I didn't do a good deal. I'm not sure what the norms are around here, but many times I would raise $1 million and I would give away 1/3 of the company. And my friend said, you could have done better than that. But I said, well, I got it done in one day. And then while some of my friends were spending 6 months trying to raise more money from someone else and getting a better deal, maybe they got 1 million, they only had to give 25% of the company away. By that point, I was 6 months ahead. So I think you should think carefully about the pros and cons to trying to get your best possible deal. And also, my philosophy on doing deals in general is I don't want to win the deal, win the negotiation. I got 90% of the benefit and they got 10%. Because it's a more of a longer term game. I want anyone who's ever worked for me to want to work for me again. I want anyone who's ever invested in me to want to invest again. I want anyone who's ever done a business development deal with me to want to do another one. So I'm quite happy only getting 50% of the value, or even I'll take 40% of the value. Let the other person make 60% of the value. If I can do enough deals, it's going to work out for me in the end.
I guess, deal closing and then launching the product. Let's say you said 3 months, launching some version of the product, which is amazing, right? With back in the days, to have any sort of web or B2B product, you need servers, you need all sort of infrastructure. How has that, I guess, changed when you look at the current startup situation now with all these mobile apps? Do you think people should launch them faster, or do you think people, now that the world's split flat, when you enter, let's say, App Store, you immediately compete with the world, right? Do you think people just be more cautious, or what is the advice for, at least IDG notices the recent trend for startups has been more with guys that grew up with smartphones, right? So they want to launch quickly, but at the same time, when you launch quickly, you immediately get drowned by guys doing the same thing, let's say overseas. So on the, I guess, launch product faster, what's your advice for them now? Let's say when especially the guys who do apps, right? What should they go even faster? But what is the things they should be more careful when launching product, especially mobile related products?
When I used to run cross-country race, and it's a 3-mile race. And our coach used to say, okay, here's how your strategy is. For the first mile of the race, I think you should go out really fast, sort of get a lead against the other people. And then for the second mile, I think what you want to do in the second mile is kind of pick up the pace and go a little bit faster, kind of extend your lead. And then for the third mile, you want to go even faster. So that's, I think, kind of what the problem is. You can't just launch quickly and then hope just because you launched first that nobody's going to be around. You have to go. It's relentless, it's tough, but if you really can move faster than your competition, they will never catch you. One of the analogies I like to use is playing chess. If you can move twice for every time your opponent can move once, you can beat a grandmaster in chess. I mean, it seems a little bit silly, but if you think about it, yeah, if you can actually move twice and they can only move once, you'll win. In terms of the tools available today to let you move fast, man, it's great today compared to when I was doing some of my first startups. With Amazon Web Services or whatever, you can stand up servers in 2 hours. And with some of the web development tools, whether it's PHP or SQL Server or whatever, you can very quickly handle hundreds of thousands or a million web hits per day. In the old days, you had to be really good at that. You had a lot of experience. Today, it's not so hard. So that's an advantage I think you guys have today. But the key is, after you launch, you have to have a very rigorous process for figuring out what features people want to do next, for identifying what's wrong with your current project. There's all sorts of tools you can use. I'm not trying to plug Google Analytics, but Google Analytics, you can figure out what pages people are getting stuck on, and you can do A/B testing of changing the words you're using on page A versus page B and see which one works better. So it's just, there are a lot of tools that can help you move fast.
I guess one question on the exit side of things, since that's something we're also looking to improve here in Vietnam, is how to exit companies. From a founder standpoint, I guess, when do you know when to exit. I guess from the investor's stand, we know that there's a time limit. There's a bit of a when you hit a certain multiple, it's time to go. But as a founder who believe in these products and work hard, when do you know to exit, or just the investors tell you that's the time? And should you invest in the investors when they tell you to exit?
So first of all, I think you should definitely not go into the process sort of planning on, okay, I want so-and-so to buy me on a certain date. Sort of building a product, a strategy, I can convince Google to buy me. If I just have these features, it'll happen in 2 years. That's nuts. In general, I don't think any companies are ever sold. You cannot sell your company. It's always bought by someone. They have a need, and they decide they want to buy it. Doesn't know. In fact, the more you're putting your hand up there saying, hey, buy me, buy me, buy me, they're really like, there must be something wrong with you if you're saying that. There must be something wrong with you, so do not do that. In terms of when to sell, I wish I had a whiteboard, but if you can imagine sort of an exponentially growing curve, you know what exponential is, it's going faster and faster. That's what you get super high valuations. If you're like a linear line, straight line, it's pretty easy for an investor to say, okay, you had 2 million sales, whatever, 3 years ago, and then 3 million sales, and then 4 million sales. Guess what? It's pretty easy for them to say, okay, after that you have 5 million, after that 6 million. But if you were like, okay, I had 1 million sales this year, and then 4 million, and then 16 million, they're like, wow, the number is going to be way up high. So the trick, I think, is to maximize valuation, is to sell while you're still in the exponential phase before it flattens out into the linear phase or flat phase. And once it starts to roll over, your valuation will drop by even 10x. If you just do the math, you can figure 1/10 as much. Now the tricky part is you have to do that before there's any indication that it's about to roll over, because when you do this due diligence as part of a process, all that will be detected. Any metrics you have to reveal to the buyer, and they'll say, well, wait a minute, it was going exponential, but now it's flattening out. So before it even flattens out, you've got to know. So I think those are, but in terms of when we sold some of ours, we were getting, you're just going to laugh, astonishing multiples. I mean, we sold direct hit for 300 times trailing 12 months revenue. 300 times trailing 12 months revenue.
Were you in the red or profit?
Oh, of course we're in the red. We're losing money. Losing money, 300 times trailing 12 months revenue. And we sold Xfire for 100 times trailing 12 months revenue. Now remember, companies are typically sell for 3 times trailing 12 months revenue, or maybe they sell for 20 times trailing 12 months profit.
Right.
So if you get an offer like 300 times trailing 12 months revenue, think about it before you turn it down.
You just made me realize we sold some of our companies way cheap. Yeah. No. I mean, in Vietnam, I think the investment size is also a lot smaller than, say, what you have to invest in Silicon Valley. Yeah. So same with the exit size, sort of corresponding a little bit. But just a side question, say, after the exit, what do you do with the fellows that just founded the company? You try to keep them for the next one, or I guess once the money is in the bank, what is next? How do you come up with the next idea or event, or would you recommend someone to go work for a corporation, which we'll get to in a little bit? But how do you retain the talents, or do you retain those talents for the next startup, or you want to start out fresh with fresh talents?
So generally in any acquisition in the United States, there's like an earn-out or a vesting period over time to get the full value. So, someone might say, okay, we're going to pay, whatever, $50 million for the company, but we're going to pay, say, $35 million to the investors, and there's going to be $15 million that's going to be paid out to the key employees, and it's going to be paid out over 3 years. So after the first year you get $5 million, the next year you get $5 million, the last year. So that tends to keep employees around for a little while. And in terms of switching teams, I mean, I wish I could sort of keep my team and go to the next one with the same team, but it hasn't really worked out that way for me. two of my companies were on the east coast of the United States in Boston, and two were in California, so I kind of had to get a new team there. And then they were in such different spaces, different technologies, different industries that it wasn't so easy to take one team and move it over to another one. And the other thing is, they were still hanging out in the previous acquired company. I was willing to move on and sort of leave some money on the table. I didn't fully invest all of the money because I was excited about the next opportunity, and they wanted to stay behind and fully invest.
So I guess at some point you went to work for Google. Was that 4 years ago? 5 years ago. So let's switch a little bit to his current role at Google, which is Director of Project Loon. Just in a nutshell, just so you guys know what it is, Project Loon, it sounds a little crazy, but I think what it is essentially, please correct me if I'm wrong, is a bunch of balloons carrying a mega routers, basically, all solar power, and basically give interconnections to people where fiber or satellite wouldn't reach or would be too costly to reach. Is that pretty much the summary of Project Loon? I have many questions, but I'm sure some of you guys do. So if you can just describe how this all started and how did you become interested in this project a little bit, and where is it actually working now, or is it still in sort of prototype?
So Larry Page actually talked 10 years ago using balloons 20 kilometers up in the sky to transmit internet around. Nobody did anything about it for a while, but it got started 4 years ago, and I was in the search team at Google at the time, and there were some people down in what's called GoogleX. The GoogleX group tries to do these crazy things. They call them moonshots, like a self-driving car. So anyway, they wanted someone very entrepreneurial to come try to do this Project Loon thing, and I was a good fit for that because I did 4 startups before coming. And they also wanted someone with an aerospace engineering background. Well, it turns out I got my bachelor's and master's degree in aerospace engineering from MIT, so it was like a great fit for me to join the project. And yes, it's been going well. We had a pilot test in Brazil last year. We brought internet to some sort of very rural people in one of the rainforests there. We've had testing in New Zealand, testing in much of Latin America. The testing so far is working great. I think I mentioned Sri Lanka has already agreed to use Loon balloons to cover the whole country. Indonesia has already agreed to, their top 3 telcos are going to be doing a pilot test next year. Indonesia is a great fit. There's 17,000 islands spread over 750,000 square miles of land. It's hard to get them with laying cables or whatever. But we are basically a cell tower way up and high in the sky, 20 kilometers up, and it sends a cell signal right down to you.
So
I only have like a couple moments.
Sure. So how long do the balloon stays up, and I guess what happens? Is it safe for air flights? And what happens when balloon sort of deflates? Does it just crash, or what happens to it?
Yeah. So it's totally safe for airplanes. They fly twice as high as the airplanes fly. So there's no chance of a plane or a balloon crashing when the balloons are on station. The only time you have to coordinate is on the way up or the way down. And we launch them, on the way up, we launch them way away from where airplanes fly. And on the way down, in general, we steer them down to a place way away from where airplanes are. We can control the balloons. We open a little valve at the top, steer it down to put space on the ground. We also have transponders on the balloons. We're not required to, but we put transponders on just like airplanes have, so air traffic control can see our balloons. We call the air traffic control every country we go over, and we say, we have a balloon that's going to come down in 5 hours. Here's the trajectory of the balloon. We even give a website to all the air traffic control we work with, and so they can just look on the website and see where all the balloons are. So, unfortunately, an insane schedule. I can only take a couple more questions. Should I do a couple audience questions?
Sure.
So if there's a couple more audience questions,
yeah.
And then, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to pick up on the question. The answer you said before, when your team is not motivated and engaged, you said that you can start with a new team. Yeah, that's what I get. So if you start with a team, how do you recharge the energy? And Get up to speed.
Right, so the question I think was, so Mike, you're saying once your team is moving too slow, you just get rid of all of them and start with a new team. So I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say that instead of trying to get people to move faster midway through a project, at the very beginning, before you hire the first person, each person you hire, you want to get super fast, intense, impatient people, and those are the ones I think, at least for me, that work better. Okay, a couple more questions? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I have a question about acquisition. I remember an example of Snapchat. Even schedule when he developed Snapchat, and at one time Facebook decided to buy him at $3 million or something, but he decided to reject, and he continued to develop Snapchat, and later, a few years later, it eventually valued up to $40 million. So my question is, what drives your decision whether to keep the company or to sell it when someone decided to acquire the company? Thank you.
Okay, so should you hold out for hire or should you sell? So first of all, I hope that everyone in this room has that choice, has that opportunity, because I often mentor startups, and the reality, at least in Silicon Valley, is only 1 in 10 startups will even get to the point where they have a chance to be acquired. It's a tough decision for me as a CEO and for you as a CEO for a number of reasons. First of all, yes, if you hold out, you might be worth $1 billion someday, as opposed to $50 million that someone's offering for you now. But you also have to remember your investors maybe they put in $1 million or something. And for the return for them, they might get $10 million back in this deal, or $20 million. And so if you hold out for more, you might get a lot more, but you might get zero. I've certainly had a lot of friends who held out for more, and they got zero. So you gotta think, are you gonna let your investors down when they put money in, they had a chance to get a 10 times return? Also your employees. In the United States, all of my companies, they've had equity ownership. And so if I turned down a deal that was gonna put, I made 28 multimillionaires in my life, which I'm very happy about. If I turned down some of these deals and it went to zero, some of these people these employees who worked there so hard, they worked 60 hours a week for a couple of years, and they sacrificed, and they turned down a deal that was going to give them $2 million, I'd feel bad. So it's a tough decision to turn down deals. And you hear all these stories about, Snapchat turned down this. I think Google turned down, or Facebook turned down $800 million offer. Facebook turned down an $800 million offer from Yahoo, right? And now they're worth, whatever, $200 billion. But for every one of the stories that you hear like that, there's at least 5 stories of someone who turned down an offer that later they wish they'd taken. Sorry. Other questions? Wow. Go ahead.
So your philosophy is to go as fast as possible and break things and fix things along the way, and that's great for a startup. But let's say if you get acquired by corporations, or right now you're working for Google, that your approach philosophy change.
So, am I allowed to go quickly and break things when I work for Google? I actually got a performance evaluation. Your boss tells you what you're doing good or bad. At Google, it's so funny you ask this question. And this is the senior vice president who gave me my performance evaluation. And he said, Mike, here's one area you need to work on. He said, let's say, Mike, you're trying to get something and it's in a house. It's inside the house. He says, Mike, what you do is you go to the front door and you knock politely, and you ring the doorbell. And if nobody answers, you walk around to the side of the house, and you knock politely and you ring the doorbell. And if nobody answers, you break the window. That's what he said in my performance evaluation. And I said, okay, is that strength or a weakness? I think Google does, GoogleX is a little bit about sort of letting you bend things a little bit, letting you, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. You have to be careful, because if you go too far, then they'll just fire you. But they do support sort of bending things a little bit. Okay,
Maybe one more question.
Well, maybe I can do it.
Yeah, I'll check it.
Sorry, go ahead in the black. Just shout it out.
So I'm curious about in the startup sector, your engagement in community-oriented activities, and a lot of startups are considering ways to get into black people who can do social responsibility activities. What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah. So how do you balance focusing 100% on your startup and you can't be distracted by anything else versus, hey, help give back to the community, help others, other entrepreneurs, help other people in the community who maybe don't have kind of the money and the resources we have. It's a great question. I've had a lot of philosophical discussions with my friends about this, where some of them say, they want to go to India right now and, for a year work in the fields and help, people who don't have a lot of resources. And other people say, that's cool, but in a year in India, you might help 100 people or 150 people. Whereas if you went and did a startup and you made $1 billion, and then could you then give back $100 million to charity? Which is going to have more impact on India? I don't know the right answer. I know that in Silicon Valley, with my startups, even in the startup phase, we did like to donate some of our equity to charities, which then the tax implications are great once it's out. And we also did like to do some time volunteer activities. It was good for community building among the company too. It was really sort of built a stronger spirit. So we tried to do both. Okay, a couple more questions. Go ahead, please. Okay, so I seem to have 4 successes, but is there anything I wish I had done differently? That's a tough question. I always kind of think, it's hard to say, well, I wish I had done this differently, because if I had done it differently, would I have ended up with the same result? One thing is, and this is kind of harsh, is basically firing people. And I mean, I've had to fire some people in my companies, and I've also mentored a lot of companies that have had to fire people. I've probably gone through 150 people have been fired that I was advising or I was doing. And out of those 150, probably 147 times the person doing it has said the next day, I should have done that a long time ago. I have never in my entire life had someone say, wow, I wish I hadn't fired that person. So it's harsh, but in terms of doing things differently, I just really emphasize, if you're even on the fence, should I fire them or not? Yes. It seems harsh, but you have to worry about the morale of the other people on your team. And if the other people on your team, they might be really frustrated that this person is weak and they're slowing things down, they're not pulling their weight, and they're getting paid like everyone else, and that can be really corrosive. Okay, a couple more. You had a question? Go ahead, please.
This philosophy of speed, when did that come to you? Did you wake up one day and got it, or when you were little, were you always very
So when did the speed come? Was I this way as a 5-year-old? I think I was a little bit this way as a 5-year-old, and in high school. And as we talked about, sort of some of the questions, just the reinforcing thing that's happened to me time and time again, where either to me or friends around me, when things dragged on, then something happened, like take my startup Direct. So that was the $500 million company. We sold that in January of 2000. If we had been 30 days slower out of the 500 days, instead of 500 million, 0. So what do you think that does in terms of 30 days slower? 0. So what do you think that does in terms of emphasizing and reinforcing my belief that speed is a pretty good thing? And there were many, many ways out of the 500 days we could have lost 30 days. So, go ahead.
Which startup are you most proud of, and why?
Which one am I most proud of and why? Well, it's funny, it's actually the first one. The first one, that's $500 each. That was a very pure startup, and that's one I think it's easy to say anyone in this room can aspire to. Because again, we only had $1,500 in capital, no venture raised. We sold software over the phone to people for $495. And in the beginning, people would call us up on the phone and say, tell me about your product. And we would send them a brochure, and then we would, follow up with them. It was just a very slow process. In the end, I got so that if someone called me on the phone, I could convince 1 out of 3 of them to buy my product for $495. I'd say, hey, we have a money-back guarantee. I don't know what it's like in Vietnam. We have a money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, please just send it back and we'll give you the money back. And why take all this time, whatever. On our wall, we had a whiteboard on our wall, and every day we would write how much we had sold and how much profit we made. And we got the whole team focused on, they'd say, we need a tech support person. This is when we had 0 tech support. I said, okay, as soon as we have 3 weeks in a row with $20,000 in profit, we'll hire a tech support person. Totally got the whole company focused. They were like, every day they'd be like, how much profit do we make today? We got to make sure we get $20,000, over 3 weeks before we get a tech support person. And we also, since we were recording profit, people knew exactly, okay, I know how much we sold it for, how much profit do we make on it? So everyone was focusing on the right things. They were focusing on profit, not revenues. So that was the one I was most proud of. One more question, then I gotta go. Okay, go ahead.
Everybody talks about their success, and everybody knows about this. What about the failures? How many did you go through that you failed, and what was the most that you learned from it?
So everyone talks about success. What about failures? So none of my companies actually cratered. The ideas, like I mentioned, 3 out of the 4 of the ideas were bad. They failed. And I did take away from that that I maybe am not the best person with ideas. Maybe my ideas aren't that good, but maybe my execution is better. But that's okay, I think, for me anyway. And what I learned out of that is just get in the space, get in the computer telephony space where you're actually talking to customers, and then you really find out what they're saying. Get people on the team who are willing to change gears, switch direction. If the first idea doesn't work, and I think you should, for me anyway, when I'm hiring someone, I say that. I say, hey, 3 out of my 4 companies, we changed direction. So if you are only in love with this idea and not with the company, then that's a little risky because there's a good chance we're going to change direction. So try to get people who are in it for the long run, not just the idea, and try to just get out there, engage with customers so you get the feedback, as opposed to thinking that you, sitting in a room without talking to customers for a year, are going to come up with a product that people are going to actually like. All right, so that's it for me. I wish you all great success in entrepreneurship. I think it's wonderful. It's been good for me. I hope it's really good for you. And I think Vietnam's super exciting. I've had a great time when I was here, and good luck with all your companies. Thanks.